Hello, welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Michael Ayala. The jury will return Monday morning to hear closing arguments in the trial of the three men accused of killing Ahmaud Arbery. But court was still in session today as attorneys argued motions and charges in the case. One of the issues William Roddie Bryan's defense attorney, Kevin Gough, has brought up several times is this issue of black pastors in the courtroom possibly intimidating jurors. It was brought up once again today, and prosecutor Linda Dunikoski believed it's Gough's intention to lure people to the courthouse so that he can get a mistrial for his client. Listen to her argument.
Your Honor, Mr. Gough is a brilliant lawyer. These briefs that he has filed are detailed, and he has filed a ton of pretrial briefs that the state has had to respond to. He is very, very smart. He is very, very calculating, and he's a good lawyer because on November 12th, he stood up in this courtroom knowing full well he was on television and made comments about Al Sharpton and then black pastors and Colonel Sanders, all knowing full well it was being broadcast on television. That was not ineffective assistance of counsel by any stretch of the imagination. That was strategic. He got the response he wanted because he has filed a motion a day based on a continued drumbeat of, well, see, people are coming and people are responding, but they're responding to what he did. They're responding to what he strategically, knowingly, intelligently did so that there would be a response so that he could then complain of it. That is good lawyering right there, because now he's motioned for a mistrial based on something that he caused. You cannot insert reversible error into the case yourself. You can't go ahead and do something and then go, oh, well, it's reversible error when you're the one who did it. But he is attempting to go ahead and do that, which, by the way, once again, not ineffective assistance of counsel, brilliant lawyering, and we ask that you deny his motion for mistrial.
Of all the things I've been called all around the world of the last month, I don't think brilliant was any of them. But let's take this up, Your Honor. The motion was legitimate. I didn't ask for anything that wasn't done in federal court 30 years ago. Because it was intuitively obvious then that it's a problem. It's intuitively obvious today that it's a problem, and it has been. The idea that a lawyer standing up to defend his client with appropriate motions made in a courtroom somehow can waive the client's rights by having raised the issue, that's a troubling concept, Your Honor. And let's be clear, this motion is not a motion to recuse. We have never filed a motion to recuse in this case. We've never even suggested that the court should do so. We've asked all the court officers in this case to disclose any basis that might arise, and we assume that when we don't receive information, that there's nothing to discuss. That's not the issue. The issue is the attempt of people in the media, or people using the media, particularly people that are associated with the Arbery family or their lawyers, whoever it's coming from, however it's coming, there is pressure being exerted on these jurors. There's pressure, consciously or unconsciously, being put on witnesses. There's pressure, conscious or unconscious, being placed on this court. That is the problem. It doesn't matter whether the jurors are being influenced. It doesn't matter whether the court is being influenced. It doesn't matter necessarily that the witnesses are being influenced. But it does raise serious questions about the propriety of the proceedings and the integrity of the process itself.
All right, I want to bring in our special guest now, William Roddie Bryan's defense attorney, the brilliant Kevin Gough. Mr. Gough, thank you so much for joining me today. I truly appreciate it.
Glad to be here.
All right. Now, I want to say, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. We got a delay.
Yeah, we got a delay.
What can I do for you on a Friday night?
All right. Let me start off by just saying I've enjoyed watching your advocacy. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I think you're doing a fantastic job. I even defended when everyone else was talking about your motion regarding black pastors. I said, hey, I get it. As a defense attorney, I understand you want to get this on the record. What I want to do is give you initially a chance to respond there to what Linda Dunikoski said, was that maybe you were doing this, that you're crazy like a fox, that you were doing this because you wanted to create a situation. Because you have to know, when you send the alarm out to black pastors, you're going to get a response.
Well, you know, that's the interesting thing here. The state, I mean, I can't believe that they're not aware of what's going on. I mean, I'm aware of what's going on. I've been getting reports for a long time about what was coming. None of this is any surprise, and it's somewhat disingenuous for the state to suggest that the defendants or I had anything to do with that. All these things were in the works and planned before this case even started. So, you know, that's a clever way for a truly brilliant attorney for the state here to put the best foot, or the best face rather, on a difficult situation. And I respect her. These lawyers from Cobb County are some of the best prosecutors I've ever seen. And as you well know, we have a judge who's incredibly well versed in the law and has issued some very, very detailed, in-depth opinions in this case. Not that we agree with them all. And of course, you've got lawyers here for the McMichaels that put the OJ Dream Team to shame. I mean, just trying to keep up with all these fine lawyers is I can assure you, it's quite the challenge. And I would note that I do follow your court TV. It's interesting. We were watching the return of the Rittenhouse verdict on a recess today during the trial, you know, I love your network and everything y'all do, but I mean, your talking heads up there in Atlanta or New York, wherever y'all are, have certainly been none too kind to me. So, you know, it's interesting for the state to attribute motions that any lawyer would file under these circumstances to some kind of evil genius. But, you know, that's all a distraction from the real issues, which is the ability of these defendants to get a fair trial. But honestly, I'd rather argue my motions in court than do it on court TV. And I think we need to be sensitive to the fact that we have jurors out there, and while we're sure they're obeying the orders of the court, it's just nothing productive to be served by going into evidence or details of motions in this case. We want this case decided on the facts that are in evidence and that the jury's going to hear, and we don't want them distracted by sideshows. And it's unfortunate that all this stuff's been going on outside the courthouse over the last couple weeks. But hopefully, you know, we can get a fair result in this case, and hopefully the truth will come out about Roddie Bryan, and hopefully he'll be able to return to his family, just like Kyle Rittenhouse, I suspect, is able to return to his family tonight.
All right, so
were there any other things you want to discuss?
Absolutely. There's something out there right now, very important issue regarding a possible plea deal. Lee Merritt has suggested that a plea deal was sought by you with the prosecutor. So I want to get from you now whether you actually sought a plea deal at any point, whether it was after the trial, before the trial, at any point. Were there ever discussions about a plea deal with the state for your client?
No, sir. No, sir. I can tell you that when I came into the courthouse this morning, I went to the prosecutors and looked at Ms. Dunikowski, and she looked at me and said, we didn't even talk yesterday. So, you know, I don't know where Mr. Merritt gets that stuff, but there's been a long history of false narratives put out there by folks, you know, whoever they are. And this is just one more in a long string of stuff put out there which doesn't forward the process of criminal justice. It doesn't forward the truth-seeking process. And, you know, it's just disappointing, you know, to see things like this and to hear about things like this. You know, and you'll have to ask Mr. Merritt why he does the things he does and how he thinks that advances the cause of justice. Because I'm literally at a loss. All I can say with respect to Mr. Merritt, in my humble opinion, it's just an opinion, it's not a fact, of course. It seems like his nose is growing every time he speaks to the press in this case.
All right, well, interesting enough, he did speak with me just a couple of days ago, and he had some interesting things to say about your client. You talk about hoping that your client goes home at the end of this trial, that he's not guilty. Well, there are, of course, as you know, folks who feel differently, and one of them is Lee Merritt. I want to play what he had to say and then get your response. Let's play that now.
I think the evidence as it comes in, you know, Wanda always felt that Mr. Bryan shared the responsibility for the murder of her son because he was recording, because he was using his truck to trap him in. But as the evidence has come in, number one, they've injected a bizarre grand theft auto in the middle of this hunt to murder Ahmaud, that Ahmaud decides to suddenly steal their car. But what really happens there, what the evidence shows, and what's going to be argued in closing, is that Ahmaud was being trapped in, hunted. He was struck, drove into a ditch by Mr. Bryan, and Mr. Bryan shares just as much culpability as Travis and Gregory as well. I don't believe that as the evidence has come in, that's going to create sympathy for Mr. Bryan.
All right, Mr. Gough, I'd love to get your response to that.
Well, I can't speak to what's in Mr. Merritt's mind or why he does the things he does. I mean, some people might wonder whether these statements that he's making, which are, some would wonder whether he's not trying to drive up the settlement value of his civil case, because when Mr. Bryan goes home at the end of this case, whatever value he thought that case had is surely going to fall through the floor. Now whether that's motivating his comments or what's going on with him, I can't speak to what's in his head. Just like he can't speak to what's in Mr. Bryan's head or what was in his head on that day or what was going on. And you know what? He doesn't get to sit on the jury. He doesn't get to decide Mr. Bryan's fate. That's going to be 12 citizens of Glynn County who are going to do that, 12 jurors honestly and impartially seeking the truth. And when they do that and they review this evidence, we're confident that they're going to send Mr. Bryan home to his family.
Speaking of what was on Roddie Bryan's mind, there was a lot of observers who felt like that was an important part of your case, and they were a little surprised when the decision was made not to put him on the stand. Can you give us a little insight into that decision, whether you guys talked about it, whether it was a decision he made, something you advised him to do? Tell us about that decision to not have Roddie Bryan take the stand, and give us what was going through his mind.
We've covered that issue with the court. In court, the court conducted an inquiry, which is standard in these cases. And I don't know that there's any purpose for me to comment about that beyond the obvious, that Mr. Bryan spoke to law enforcement, fully cooperated with them over and over again. The entire case rests upon Mr. Bryan and that cooperation. Without it, there is no case. I'm not sure what Mr. Merritt thinks, but I don't make my decisions based on what Lee Merritt wants. I make my decisions on what's best for my client. And beyond that, I don't know if there's anything to add. How many statements does Mr. Bryan have to give before people get the general idea of what he knows about this case?
All right, fair enough. And one of my final questions will be, one of the things from an outside looking in, we're all wondering about the relationship between the attorneys. We know that Travis and Greg's attorneys are working together, sort of a unified defense. Oftentimes you seem sort of on the outside. At other times, your interests seem to diverge. How's that relationship, and how has that played into your defense strategy in this case?
Personally, I think the world, and professionally, I think the world of the McMichael lawyers. These are four of the best criminal defense attorneys, certainly in the state of Georgia, if not in the Southeast. And the work they do is phenomenal. But at the same time, just as I don't represent Al Sharpton, I don't represent the McMichaels. I represent Roddie Bryan, and I have to look out for his interests. Sometimes his interests aren't going to align with theirs. I mean, you saw a lot of that today. Disagreements over what the relevant principles of law might be. But you know what? These are great lawyers. They're doing a great job. It's an honor and privilege to work with them. But, just like I have great respect for our local pastors and a lot of these icons in the civil rights movement that have been here, in this case, in this trial, I represent Roddie Bryan.
All right, you got closings coming up on Monday. How are you feeling coming into closings?
Well, we're feeling I feel good. I always feel good in every trial, I certainly feel good in this case. I feel good because I have a good client. I have a great American that I'm representing, not somebody that ever sought or wanted the limelight. But, I'm excited to represent Roddie, and I'm excited to finally get our chance to present his side of this to the jury.
All right. Well, Mr. Gough, I want to really tell you how much I appreciate you coming on our show, taking the time. I know you've been working very hard. And like I said, I've really appreciated your zealous representation of your client. And hopefully we'll get to talk to you again soon.
Look forward to it. And the bagels help, by the way. Bribery will get you everywhere.
All right. Fair enough. All right. Have a great evening.
Have a good night.
All right. You too.